Memories of, like skipping school, and I think in Edmonton it was Siesta Cinema, and watching East of Eden. And the character in it was called Cal Trask, so, oh yeah, I could be an actor, because there's a guy named Cal in there. That kind of thing. When you go, there's always hints of little, going, oh, that might be a good thing to do. And the cinema was a very big part of being a kid. To go to watch Godzilla versus the Smog Monster was like an event, right? Because you could eat the popcorn and then flatten the box and then fire it really hard off the back of someone else's head. That was cinema for me. It was never like a burning desire, but more something that I knew in the back of my mind as a kid. It was one of those things that would be a great adventure. That'd be a great adventure, to be an actor, auto racer, bullfighter, mountaineer, all those things. Growing up, my family was, Scottish. I was born in England, but, there was a lot of goon show radio stuff, and Spike Milligan, these guys, Dudley Moore, Peter Sellers, and there was in Edmonton a radio station, and a friend had started working for the radio station, and they did this live theater performance every Saturday, and I worked at the restaurant with my friend Scott, and so he had me listen in one Saturday, and he wanted me to critique it and see if it was any good, and it wasn't, in my opinion. So, as a threat, he invited me to come down and participate, and so I did, and it became this sort of ongoing thing for a year where we'd write our own shows, we'd do sound effects, all that stuff. It was very fun, and it was with the same group of people that we formed a theater company, and then just did some theater. I was never really comfortable doing theater. I never felt as comfortable as I did. Once I shot some film and worked in that medium, I didn't think I would go back to it. Because there was also the process, for me, is like if a theater show worked, I wasn't sure why. If it failed, I didn't know why either. If I felt like I was bad, I might have been, I couldn't really discern or watch it. Obviously I couldn't watch it back to learn from it, whereas in film and television there was a lot of experimentation. I could try things and then look at it, or, what I thought worked and what I thought was bad was good. And so I was trying to find how to work within that medium. Actors always go through, neurotic, not knowing their craft well enough, and of course not having trained at all, and only learn by getting books and reading and watching films and seeing plays. I just never felt schooled enough, so I never really had a foundation to fall back on. So, and theater worked in a different way for me, like film works in small snippets, and you can do it again, you can replay it. So theater, it was always the stepping off point to start the show. Was always a bit, tons of stage fright, not very comfortable at all. Whereas film and television work, there's a little bit more control of the time frame that you're working in, and that you get to repeat shots, repeat scenes, come in tighter, wider, whatever. I don't think they make that many light-hearted, Canadian films. There's just not. A lot of the roles for men, I think, went through a period where it was all sort of a geek mentality for the male leads, and then now it's a lot of damaged, but there's not really, we don't really make romantic stuff. We don't really make out-and-out comedies. We, stay within this sort of odd format of what I'm not sure. French cinema is completely different. I'm not even touching that, because it's got its own life and its own world, and they can make a drama, they can make comedy, they can do everything. But I think the Western, we just get caught in a certain, you know, and it's weird to think that you're typecast in like Canada, but there's a certain, you know, you play a couple of intense roles, and then you're the guy they get when they want something intense, I guess. For me, I did Suspicious River, and then the stigma of that carried for a while, which I didn't really think it would, where you go, oh, you played this dark character, and that's what you do. And I'm like, well, no, you know, there's been some lighter fare in there, and a lot of different things, and a lot of varied things, but I guess the ones that stick with certain people are the heavier ones, so that's how they identify me. Like, of course, Due South was certainly not anything heavy. There's been lots of work that has been quite light and silly, and with you know, some tongue-in-cheek, and has been really, you know, not that. And even Fallen Angels to me is a comedy, and it's only a comedy because that, you know, that character is played, you know, head on and oblivious, and that makes him, to me, funny.
Ladies and gentlemen, this hour has 7 days.
Supposed to look after! What were you thinking? What were you thinking? Whole neighborhood probably knows by now. Larry, won't happen again, okay?
On Fallen Angels, luckily, I think when we were talking about the project, I was in Los Angeles, and Molly Parker, a friend of mine, put me onto this acting coach who gave me a couple of notes on the piece. She just read the script, and then we talked about it. That was that part of that process, and then also having the book, and then basing it a little bit on it was fragmented, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. There wasn't any secure one thing, and then you're also working with the director. So process is such a hard thing to define for me, because it seems to change on every show. There's always a, you know, given the time frame to work, given if it's from a novel, if it's just how to approach it. Like, I'm working on a movie now that's a serial killer, but I didn't get the job until the Friday. I'd read the script a month before, but you don't really start work until someone, you know, says you're going to do it, or you say you're going to do it, and it's all agreed upon. So that's been a real scramble of trying to find an honesty and a reality to that type of character.